In this video, you're joining me for my first ever Bivvy Tarp camp. You're going to get to see my foolish decision to try and change over to a forester's tent tarp setup in the small hours, but this was how my previous attempt to camp here ended, being rumbled by a dog walker. This time, I deliberately set out later when sunset was already well underway to try and limit the amount of people who would be out and about before darkness fell, while I would be hanging around my campsite. And this is where the tarp was going to play a key role. I wanted to build the simplest shelter to just act as a direct line of sight blocker between me and the path in the background. The other directions I was covered and it was highly unlikely anybody would walk by there, so this was effectively completely concealing me from the outside world. And here was my ace up my sleeve, or so I thought, my first ever attempt to use camo netting, as well as my first ever attempt to do a very basic bivvy and tarp camp. So I've just shown those two before shots so that you've got a general idea of how visible the tarp on its own is from a distance. But as I was putting the camo netting up, I realised, because I'd never used it before, I really needed some clips to help stretch it out across the tarp. It was wide enough to give it a decent covering, but I just didn't have any way to hold it up to the top of the tarp. So this is the before visibility from by the path, and this, even with my very poorly strung camo netting, is the unbelievable difference in visibility. And I've got to say, I'm really pleased with this. I just want to make sure I go out and practice and have a proper test of how different camos look and how to best set them up. So after that, I thought I'd have a nice calm moment and something to eat. As you can see though, I was constantly looking over my shoulder as I was obsessed somebody was going to walk by and see me. I did go and restring the camo net a little bit better, and again, you can just see what a great effect that is. So one of the things I like to do throughout the evenings on these camps is routinely just sort out the next phase of the night. So here obviously I'm setting the bivvy up, but I'm also making sure that all of the little bags and everything that I need as containers go in my main backpack so that they're hopefully going to be easy to find and easy to put my hand on if I need to escape in a hurry. Just a quick side note here, if you are thinking that tarp looks quite saggy, it's because it's actually a 3x3 tarp folded in half to make it a lot smaller for this setup, and of course has got the weight of the camo netting on it. Speaking of which, just look at how effective it became. As the light started to dip a little bit more, the camp basically became invisible. Brilliant. I don't know if it's coming across just how absolutely surrounded by birdsong I am right now. Everybody's getting their last tunes sung for the day, and it's a beautiful experience. I had a quick walk around just to stretch my legs before bedtime and revisited the little river island that I previously camped on. Check out that in my other videos. My trousers actually froze because I had to wade across the water. Anyway, this was my very simple lantern setup, basically my head torch hanging from a selfie stick, and then it was bedtime. I'm getting just a little bit nervous now as I'm about to hop in the bivvy for the first time. Got all sorts of birds and strange noises around us, but that's the woods at night. So this is going to be my first proper test of trying to sleep in the bivvy, or at least just relax in it. I'll put a bug net over my head so that I can hopefully keep the bugs and slugs off my face. Fingers crossed, wish me luck on that one. I think that's my biggest fear, stuff getting in my nose and my ears and stuff like that. And I'm going to wait until it's a lot later on when I'm sure nobody is around, and then I'll change this from being just a simple lean-to tarp shelter to being maybe a bit of a half forester's tent, or at the very least an A-frame. Anyway, let's see how this goes. So you can see this has actually got an open face, but if I'm lucky it's still attached. It's got a mesh that covers that hole as well, so I can be completely tucked in, and I can even pull this tight if I really wanted to. But yeah, I sort of feel incredibly vulnerable lying down so open like this. But just having something over my face so that there's no bugs going to be able to get direct access to me immediately makes me feel that little bit safer. Oh, there's a dog walker about. I better turn this light off. The sky is so clear, it is absolutely beautiful, just lying here looking straight up. This is everything that I hoped this sort of completely basic bivvy would be. At this moment, I don't think I could have loved the bivvy bag any more. Extremely lightweight and simple, and giving me this opportunity to look up at the stars through the trees. I did hop out of it for a brief few minutes just to get some uninterrupted shots of the sky, and you can probably imagine it was just absolutely brilliant. It is coming up to midnight. It's absolutely silent, and the traffic on the road over the way is really quietened down, as you might be able to tell. But at some point, the bottom checking pole has fallen down. So I was thinking, oh, I'm really warm and toasty. And that's because I've got some extra layers basically across me. You can see it's still up on this side, just about. Talk about being warm. This is March that I'm filming this, so I don't know if you can tell. It's still 10 degrees at midnight, and I think it's forecast to go warmer in the small hours of the morning even than this. It is absolutely silent. It's completely clouded over as well. Don't know if that will show up better on the camera actually. I think, is there a moon up there, or is that just in the general direction of Chirk with all of the industrial lights? Now that I've had a little bit of a walk around and a stretch of my legs and my back and everything, I can say not only is my leg quite stiff, but my foot is really sore. I've definitely been sleeping at a weird angle. And I don't know if that's just from being on the hard ground or whether it's being in the small bivvy and just obviously penned in a little bit more than I'm used to. Anyway, I can't complain, I've been asleep for hours. So, as I unsuccessfully try and light a Trangia stove with the old flint and steel, I suppose I'll just give you a few thoughts that were going through my head at this point. I was over the moon that I'd slept in the bivvy. Of course, this is my first time sleeping in just a simple open-faced bivvy, rather than a hooped bivvy with bug nets and being fully enclosed. And of course, it was also my first time using a tarp as any form of shelter, which I think at this point, my happiness and my confidence in that I was just going to get back to sleep straight away maybe led me a little astray. And well, as you'll see, I spent so long messing around with the tarp building a new shelter that it wasn't until 1:30 that I finally got back into bed. Just a very quick moment to camera here. This is fantastic. It's owls all around, practically no other sound, no cars on the road, and as you've just seen, I've got my drink. This is just brilliant. Originally, my plan had been to have my drink and change my tarp setup well before I went to sleep, but the fact that I managed to get to sleep so easily, of course, delayed this by about 4 hours or so. And as I say, maybe overconfident from how well I'd got to sleep, I started the process of shifting my tarp around. And although it's very easy and very quick to build these tarp shelters, which is something I've done multiple tutorial videos on because I just can't believe how good they are and how substantial you can feel they are as well for what's effectively just a big sheet and some poles. But my big mistake here, of course, doing it in the pitch black, but secondly, I've got all sorts of obstacles. I've got brambles, I've got bits of tree hanging down, I've got small trees sticking up. So there's a large chance of getting it snagged on something, which made me overcautious. But as you can see, in the end, I did get a nice forester's tent setup done. However, I felt, because there were so many obstacles in the tent, that I then needed to open up one end of it so that it was a longer enclosed space. And yeah, I don't know. I think at this point I'd started to get just a little bit fatigued and a little bit frustrated. And of course, as I was doing it and seeing all of the bugs that I was disturbing in the leaf litter on the ground, literally walking around right next to where my head was meant to be, it started to just put that little bit of fear and that little bit of back into me. And as I say, 1:30, I finally was back in the tent. As I lay there knowing that I had a 4 a.m. alarm set. Yes, I know it's early, but if you check out my other videos, you'll see my ridiculous life where I like to randomly get up at 5 just because. But it probably unsettled me a little bit knowing I had so few hours to try and get to sleep. Okay, my 4 and 4:10 a.m. alarms have gone off. I've slept a bit better. Let me show you. As you can see, I've had to delayer twice. So I pushed everything right to the back just for security, and obviously I've had this pulled a little bit further up from the back, and it's not quite as penned in between those as I thought. I couldn't have it completely diagonally as I wanted it, like a crosswise like that. Man, hang on, I need to wake up a bit here. At this point, my interest in recording had completely collapsed, so I just set up the tripod to record the disassembly process. So here's a few extra thoughts about the bivvy. So that second time, I don't know if it was because I was in a more enclosed shelter and I had absolutely no breeze on me, but I felt that I was really warm and that I was sweaty and getting clammy in there. So that led me to twice remove a layer, firstly my coat and then my shirt, just to go down to my t-shirt. And of course, each time I did that meant getting out of the bivvy bag halfway and really sort of unsettling and disrupting myself. So I don't know if that all helped to make me feel a lot less positive and a lot more flustered, I suppose. And I will say, though, on a positive note, maybe it's because of the warm temperature. Although I felt clammy and sweaty and somehow a little bit damp almost. I don't know, just clammy is a good word for it. It wasn't like the bivvy was completely filled with moisture and condensation like I'd anticipated it would be, but you could tell there was definitely something there. On the subject of the tarp shelter, I honestly think that it was actually too substantial changing to the forester's tent setup, because it meant that I was really well enclosed in an already well sheltered area. So rather than being exposed as I'd imagined I would be with a tarp, in this case, it might be one of the very few cases this is true, I was actually over sheltered if I'm honest. So yeah, a lot of things learnt. I'm looking forward to getting out in the next few days to play around with the camo netting as well, so I'll try and get a video up of that so you can see a couple of different styles of camo and how I can best affix it to the shelters I'm building. Yeah, great stuff all round, a really enjoyable night. If you haven't seen my other camping videos, normally they're a bit more scenery focused and there's more of me going out and about, but because I knew this was a high risk area of getting discovered or spotted by somebody, that's why this is mainly a camp based video. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to help me out, please consider becoming a channel member, a PayPal supporter, a Facebook subscriber, or a super thanker, as it really has helped me massively having that support of people recently. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to some of my recent supporters: Melissa L, Sean B, C Cole, Dawn H, A Sanford, T Seymour, David D, Kaz G, the Yacht Captain, and Fufarito. Thank you very much, everybody. Until the next time, keep it interesting, keep it tent worthy, have a fantastic day, and of course, farewell.